Today we're going to be talking about real numbers. Um, Within all numbers, there are considered different types of numbers. For example, we have real numbers, which is this whole area of numbers. And then bigger breakdowns are rational numbers and irrational numbers. Irrational numbers are out there on their own. However, rational numbers have some subgroups. So for example, we have natural numbers, and natural numbers are also considered whole numbers. And whole numbers are also considered integers. Integers are also considered rational numbers, and rational numbers are also considered real numbers. All right. So these are just the breakdown. This is the breakdown. This is a very general map of how this breakdown looks like. So from here, we're just going to go through and talk about each of these types of numbers. So our first type are natural numbers. All natural numbers are the numbers that we count with. They're the counting numbers. So we start at 1, and then we just go up from there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. All right. The next type of number are whole numbers. Whole numbers are numbers that start with 0. Okay, so this includes the natural numbers, the one that we talked about before, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, but it also includes 0. So we start with 0 and we go up from there. All right, next we have integers. Integers, well, they are whole numbers and natural numbers, all right here. They also include the negative numbers. So -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, all the way up to through the positive numbers. Okay, all negative, all positive, including 0, are considered integers. All right, which brings us to our big idea of what rational numbers are. Rational numbers are all positive and negative fractions, including integers and improper fractions. So this means that, for example, we have 3/4, -1/5, 3.27 or 72, 7. So it includes fractions, negative fractions, decimals. I don't have an example on here, but negative decimals and whole numbers, both negative and positive. All right, so this brings us to irrational numbers. So we talked about everything that has to do with rational numbers, which are the integers, whole numbers, um, whole numbers, integers, natural numbers. On the other side of our concept map, if you remember, there was a section that was on its own called irrational numbers. And irrational numbers are real numbers that are not rational. Makes sense. Real numbers that cannot be written as a ratio of integers. So for example, negative square root of 2, square root of 7, the square root of 19. Pi is considered an irrational number. The reason is we don't know where pi ends. Hasn't been discovered. We don't think that there is an end. It goes on and on and on and on. Okay? That's the same thing with if you were to find the square root of 2. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay? There's no end. It's different from rational numbers because a rational number, for example, this 3.72 has an end. The decimal ends. Irrational numbers don't end. Okay? So just to go over some of these so we can go through. The really easy ones to pick out would be the natural numbers, which are my counting numbers. So that could be considered 12, 36, all of those. 0 is considered my whole numbers, along with 12 and 36. My integers, I can go -5, negative, -3/4 would probably be considered more rational. Okay, -1. All right, my rational numbers. 1.25, -3/4, 2.2, that type of thing. My irrational numbers on here. My irrational numbers would be like the square root of 73. We know that that's not a perfect square. It's somewhere between 8 and 9, between the square root of 64 and the square root of 81. All right, square root of 15, square root of 10, and negative square root of 2. All right, so this is just the breakdown of all the different types of numbers, real numbers out there. Make sure that you're ready to classify these different numbers tomorrow in class, and please commit this to your long-term memory, because knowing what type of numbers you're working with is a very important skill to have in math, um, especially when you start working with more complicated numbers and more complicated concepts as time goes on. All right, so come to class with any questions.